Welcome back to the Mayhem Performance Podcast. Officially 10 episodes deep. We're basically a trilogy at this point. No, excited to be here. It's just Jake and I today. Unfortunately,
couldn't get anybody else to come.
Yeah, no one else wants to do this podcast with us. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we're diving in. We had pretty much every coach on here so far. Kind of give a little bit of their background and their life story, and unfortunately today I'm in the hot seat. So
we told Dom like 10 minutes ago, by the way.
Yeah.
So because I knew if I told Dom that we were going to tell his story,
I would have sent my wife to do the podcast.
Yeah, that'd actually probably be a really good podcast. So yeah,
probably
we should have had Olivia here.
A lot of censoring.
Yeah,
going clear without his work.
We got in the real story though. Yeah.
Probably too far of the real story.
Probably too real. Yeah.
I would have left here crying or something. Might still have him.
Ooh, that's a good pot. We could have our wives here.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that could get bad. But yeah, we're gonna basically as usual, we like to keep these pretty raw. So I have no prepared questions, which if you know me, if anybody's listening, has ever sat with me, and I'm a big fan of people's story. I love to hear their story. So I can end up asking like a million questions. So buckle up, man. You thought coffee pods and WODs was bad.
Honestly, when I was driving here, I was like, he hasn't asked me one single question about this podcast. And I was like, this is so odd, because usually he's like, do you have any ideas?
We're going to go whiteboard toolkit after this, and we're going to wing that too. That's when the best art is made. Yeah, so I probably should have thought through some decent questions here, but a lot of this is going to really genuinely be from the heart, because I really don't know. The background, most of the background I have from you is from listening to Coffee Pods and WODs, and that wasn't much, because you bobbed and weaved a little bit.
Try to read Peter's scripture.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's get into it. So let's go way back. Let's go to the beginning. Yeah. Well, we're fellow Florida boy.
Yep.
For starters. So yeah, where'd you grow up? Talk a little bit about your family, siblings, what life was like, and then I'll just jump in.
So I was actually born and raised in Naples, Florida, one of the very few. Naples, Florida is mostly like
retired.
Yeah, people come and retire there. But my family moved there in the 70s. Probably one of like the first families-ish in the Naples area. And my grandfather opened up a hotel there.
From where?
From Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
So my whole grandfather's side of the family is from Cleveland, Ohio. His dad basically ended up there through like Ellis Island. So my family's predominantly Italian on my grandfather's side, and my dad's side is predominantly is all Spanish, like actual Spain.
I didn't know that.
And then my grandmother on my mom's side is also Spanish. So I'm actually more Spanish than Italian.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, actually, D'Agostino is actually technically not my biological last name. That's my mom's maiden name.
What?
But my last name's actually Tercera. So
Fernandez?
It's like Tercera.
Wait, what?
That's where I go. Yeah, that's why my license is like Tercero D'Agostino. So my dad's last name, my mom's last name.
Dude, we're already getting the
crazy, right?
Gems.
So yeah, grew up in Naples, lived in Orlando for like a year.
How old are you?
How old am I now?
Yeah.
32.
Okay, so we're the same age.
92. I was born in 92. Yep. Lived in Orlando for like a year, but I don't really remember any of it. And then my family moved back to Naples. Do you know Celebration in Orlando?
Yeah.
You know what that is?
We used to go there for Christmas lights.
So when I was like from like 3 to 4 years old, I lived in like the first 2 apartments that were ever built in Celebration.
Dude, that was like the sickest spot of Orlando too.
One of my grandfather's best friends was like an engineer for Disney. He helped build Thunder Mountain.
Oh, wow.
Like he literally was like one of the designers for Thunder Mountain. And then he became like head of security for Disney for a while. So that's why we moved there. Because it
was like white picket fences.
Him and my grandfather thought they could like do some hotel stuff in that area. And then my family ended up buying Perkins restaurants in Naples. And then they franchised like 4 Perkins restaurants around the Naples area and did that all the way through like my college life. So just kind of grew up in Perkins.
They sold them? They don't
sold
have them? Okay.
Yep. It was my grandfather, my mom, and then 3 of her brothers did that. So my mom's the youngest of 7 kids. She has 6 older brothers. So I have 6 uncles.
Jeez.
And then there's my mom.
So then grew up in Naples, like elementary, middle, high school.
Everything. Yeah, I actually did some of my elementary at a Catholic school, and then my grandfather switched me over to a private school where like, this is crazy, but where some of my second cousins were. They're Zamponias, but that's my grandfather's mom was a Zamponia, and my grandfather's a D'Agostino, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But one of my grandfather's best friends moved from Italy to the U.S. to become a doctor, essentially, and he's a Zamponia. All of his kids are like in between my age and my mom and my uncle's age. So like they grew up like babysitting me, so I'm really close with a lot of them. They also all live in Naples.
Nice.
If that makes sense.
So it's like big extended family.
Yeah.
And then high school, did you play sports?
Yeah, soccer, and then basketball. Kind of dabbled in a lot of stuff, but those were like the two things I played the most of. But I went to a really small private school, so there wasn't really tryouts. Basketball was like the biggest thing, so that was like the thing like you kind of. That was like pretty much the only thing with like JV and varsity. Everything else was just varsity, and you were thrown on the team, and you probably didn't play if you weren't good, but you were on the team.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about high school basketball. I played JV my junior year. Yeah. It was pretty embarrassing. So I didn't want to. That's another story. So
like my high school didn't have football.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What school was it?
It was called Seacrest.
That's right.
But they had like really good baseball, but that was the only sport I didn't play was baseball.
And then would you call yourself like a big sports fan in high school or?
Yeah. So 4 of my uncles graduated from Notre Dame, and then my family just grew up like Notre Dame and Packer fans. And I think my grandfather like loosely had met Vince Lombardi a couple times or so.
That's sick.
But even if he didn't, just because Vince Lombardi was Italian, we were going to be Packer fans. So it was kind of like that.
Yeah.
That was really
So then like, did you like going into college, what did you want to do going into college? Like what was your?
Yeah. So in high school, in middle school, I like did really nothing. I dabbled in basketball a little bit, but I played a ton of Halo and a like insane amount of video games. And then I like randomly got into like DDR, which is like Dance Dance Revolution. I started playing that at like King Richard's.
Can you dance?
No, absolutely not. It was just a fun game.
It was just the jumping
and
one
then,
on the lights.
Like, yeah. And then like freshman year of high school, I really wanted to try to play basketball, and I could like barely make it up and down the court like twice. And like the coach of the basketball team was basically like, you might be the only person we cut. And so I was like, well, that sucks. And so I was like, well, I don't want that to happen. And so one of my uncle who I'm named after, I can actually remember this. I had a headset on, and I can't remember what video game I was playing, but I was playing something. And he lived with me at the time. So again, my family's crazy, but it was like me, my mom, him, and my grandfather and my grandmother all in one house. And he like knocked on my bedroom door, and I didn't hear it. And then I just like see the door swing open. He like yells something at me, and I was like, and he was like, take it off. So I like went like this with just one of them, and he's like, you have boobs. And I was like, what? And he was like, tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. you're gonna start lifting with me. And I was like, okay. I just like put my headphone back on.
That's when it began.
And literally that's when it began. I started like getting like insanely into bodybuilding, and I was like, this is how I'm going to be able to play basketball. And then one of my other uncles started playing basketball with me all the time, and he bought a hoop, like a good hoop for my grandparents' house, and he would just like come over after work and like play with me. And like freshman year I sucked. I didn't play at all. Like I didn't even play on JV. And I just started like exercising like crazy. And then I got like obsessed with exercise, probably more than any other sport. So I played
more than even like basketball.
Yeah. And then like I would watch like I had a DVD of Pumping Iron. I would watch that like 5 times a week.
Just get
literally like 5 times a week. And then I read like the entire Arnold like encyclopedia on bodybuilding.
I still have that. Do you have that?
Yeah. I read that whole thing like front to cover.
His workouts are insane.
Like, and my one uncle had been.
I picked up the other day just for fun because I bought a bookshelf and I was like setting everything up, and I didn't realize like he's like, you should start every workout with like 5 minute. It's like basically a 5-minute AMRAP of Roman chair setups.
Let's go.
It's just like every workout. He's like, it's like an extended warm up.
I
was like,
sick.
Let's go. That's awesome.
Dude,
I may start doing that.
It was awesome. That book is awesome. But my one uncle had been lifting weights literally forever. Like my whole life I saw him work out. It was clockwork. He would go out in the garage. He had a whole garage gym for us, and he lived with us my whole life pretty much.
So college sport, like college basketball, was not like an
no. I played like intramural.
Yeah.
I did a lot of intramural sports, but no college.
So going
sports.
going into college, well, yeah, like where'd you go to school and then what'd you study?
So a lot of high school. I got into training like crazy through my uncle, but then I also worked with this personal trainer, and he was the one that really sparked an interest of like, I want to like be in fitness for a living. Like I want to help other people figure this stuff out. So like I actually got in,
what about
I don't know. I don't know. He helped me like completely like change my life. Like nutritionally was what he helped me with. So my uncle like got me into lifting, and then this guy got me into like, it's crazy, but I was like vegan for like 2.5 years.
You told me that before.
Like absolutely shredded. And then like I played with some other stuff. And honestly, I would probably go
some other stuff
back to it. Yeah. Just like
some
when
steroids?
I got into CrossFit. No,
okay.
like paleo or
like play
just,
with some other stuff.
just tried a bunch of other,
yeah.
like a bunch of other
This is in high school?
things. Yeah. Like senior
wow.
year of high school.
What does your Italian family think about you going vegan?
Oh, my grandmother hated it.
Yeah, I bet.
Literally every day it was like, why don't you love my cooking anymore? And I'm like, dude, I love it, but I don't want to die.
Yeah,
like, I can't eat a stick of butter with my chicken every night for dinner. And pasta every night.
I lived with my grandparents one summer, and that's when I started being like I went gluten-free to see if it helped with my stomach. And you would have thought that like I was an apostate.
Yeah.
To my grandma.
Yeah, when I was like weighing and measuring stuff.
Yeah. She made comments every day.
Yeah, you're getting too skinny. Like I'm like, dude, just because I don't have 40% body fat, like
I was like 225, 6'2", 225 playing tight end in college, and she's like, I think I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
And you're like, Grandma, I'm benching
I was like
185
pounds, 6 foot, so I guess that's a little different.
So you went into school to like passionate about fitness.
Yeah, literally with that, but I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do. So separately apart from that, I was like brainwashed by my family to be obsessed with Notre Dame football. And it was like, you got to go to Notre Dame if you want to be happy.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Oh yeah.
So I did my first year of school in Indiana at Notre Dame's brother school. So like where Rudy goes, like
Holy
typical
Cross.
thing. Like you go to Holy Cross and you try to transfer into Notre Dame,
and
then
Rudy.
you become a legend.
Like living the Rudy story.
Yeah, minus like any sports aspirations.
Yeah.
Lots of beer, lots of tailgating.
South Bend, Indiana.
My high school was such a good academic school that when I got into college, my freshman year was like a joke academically. So I barely had to like study. So I got away with partying like an idiot and passing classes, which is basically what I did. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was just like, this is just a year.
Did you have any trouble going from Naples to South Bend? Like, was that like a culture shock for you?
It was hard. So the first semester it wasn't, because it was like Notre Dame football every Saturday, and I was just having a blast with my friends, and I was roommates with like my lifelong like childhood best friend.
That's cool.
That I grew up with. So he went there, and he was in like ROTC though, and was like full on going into like, he ended up being an Apache pilot. So but he knew he wanted to do that when he was like 7. He was like, I'm going to be in the military. Like insane.
You know what's wild is like, so what year did you graduate high school? 2010?
2010.
Yeah, so we graduated at the same time, and you went to South Bend from Naples, and I went from Tampa to Milwaukee.
Yeah,
so we're both. And then how long did you last there? A year?
A year.
I was there a semester.
Yeah.
And you went back to Florida?
Mm-hmm. So I actually went from...
Florida beckons, man.
It was crazy. I went from Holy Cross there. I actually did apply to Notre Dame to transfer in. But before I even like finished that process, which I ended up not going to Notre Dame, obviously, but I also applied back to USF in Tampa.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I want to go there for exercise science. I started figuring it out. And I was like, wait a second, Notre Dame doesn't have an exercise science program. Holy Cross doesn't have an exercise science program. The only thing I could do here is like pre-med. So then I was like, all right, maybe I'll go pre-med. So then I started at the second half of Holy Cross. And then even at USF, I still took some prereqs for that, because I was like, maybe I will go get a medical degree.
You went to USF.
I did go to USF
that's
for
wild.
a year.
I was going to go to USF my sophomore year. We may have crossed paths.
Yeah, so I went for a year,
That's
and
crazy.
then I was like done with prereqs at that point, and I needed to apply for a major. And I started doing some actual research on like, what are the best exercise science programs in the nation. And the school in Fort Myers, near where I lived in Naples, actually had like a top 5 program at the time. And they were the only exercise science program with a cadaver lab, in which you took classes also with the physical therapy students. And I was like, well, if I can get in here, I want to go. So I had to call there, but then I actually ended up having to do another year prereqs, because it was so hard to get into that program that I didn't have the necessary prereqs.
FGCU? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Dunk City.
Yep. I was like around
that was like
at
right,
FGCU during that
when
time.
we were in school.
So then I went from Tampa to FGCU, and
now
then
real quick what did you want to do with the exercise science degree? Like
originally,
did you want to be a personal trainer? Did you
no,
want
so originally, so I started CrossFit in end of 2011. And then started like full on CrossFit in 2012 and got my level 1 actually at the old, we can get there eventually, but at the old CrossFit Mayhem in 2013. And I was in my exercise science program at that time. So
you were already thinking CrossFit?
I was already thinking CrossFit.
Competitive CrossFit coaching?
No, I was thinking of opening an affiliate.
Okay.
Yeah.
But going into it originally, what did you want? Was it, you're thinking more sport based, or were you thinking?
No, I was thinking CrossFit.
Really? Wow. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah. I actually could probably go on my laptop and pull it up. I had to write like all these things to get into the program. Like, what do you want to do with your degree after? And like mostly everybody would go into my program and then go to physical therapy school after, was usually like the typical trajectory. But mine was like literally open up like an affiliate and do. So
you're reading Zadazorsky with the lens of your L1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which makes more sense.
I was the person always causing arguments in the exercise science program, because it was everything I learned in my exercise science program was opposite of CrossFit methodology.
Yeah. We'll pause there. Keep.
I
want to dive.
But it was cool because like I was also the only person who knew how to Olympic lift, and I had a class that like taught Olympic lifting. And then one of the physical therapists that taught our classes, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he owned an affiliate. So one of my teachers owned a CrossFit affiliate, and he taught a class on the biomechanics of Olympic weightlifting. Oh, wow. And he used to walk us through like the literal biomechanics of like moment arms and physics of like Olympic lifts. It was such a cool class.
And then, but then you got your MBA. What made you?
Well,
when did
for exercise science, I had like a year of normal classes, and then the second portion of it was all internship. So I interned at community school in Naples, like my hometown, which is a high school there, really big private school, was actually where my wife went to high school. But I did strength and conditioning there for my first internship. And then my second internship, which was probably the most impactful in like really deciding like I'm going to go all in on this as a career as a coach. Even if I do CrossFit competitively as an athlete or whatever I want to do with that, like no matter what the end goal is coaching, was my internship doing strength and conditioning for FGCU. And when I finished that was like the last thing I did.
Did you work with all teams, or was it where you
pretty much. There was a few that I did not work with. I did not work with men's basketball, and I did not work with men's baseball, but I worked pretty much with everything else. And the coach I worked under, Eric Krause, I don't know if he's still doing it. He always likes like my Instagram stuff now, but he taught me like later, like he'd be the first person that I go to where I'm like, the way I program stuff and learned how to coach was because of him. Because he literally would let me in my internship. Like at some points he was like, hey, you just lead these guys. Like you coach the tennis boys. Like you do their programming, you lead them through their sessions. So like what I do with athletes now in person, I started doing in that internship with like teams.
How much CrossFit were you doing with them?
I would sneak some in there for sure. I would, and he would allow me to, which was cool.
Yeah.
Nothing like insane.
Were you snatching the tennis boys?
No. No. But there's some freak athletes, man. There's some female swimmers that were insane. Yeah. Absolutely insane, like sprint swimmers.
But like during that time, none of that like appealed. None of that, because you put me in that situation, and like it would just, I think I'd get sucked up in it.
I thought about it, and then that's what got hard. So then when I graduated is when I met Matt and Daria, who owned North Naples CrossFit. And that's when I was like, all right, I have an option here. I love competing in CrossFit, and I love coaching CrossFit, and I think I want to go an affiliate route at some point. And I had just met them, and I moved back. I was living at home at that time, and my grandparents, who I lived with, and my mom, we moved to a house right by that affiliate. And so I started going there as a member just to like pick back up with CrossFit, because I hadn't done it in a while.
And you were, at this time, you still had competitive aspirations on your own?
I thought so.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. And then I started training with one of my...
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
I had kind of gotten out of it because of my internships and stuff. And I had just gotten really into Olympic weightlifting. I did some like Olympic weightlifting meets, and it was just like something I did like on the side while I was training. And then one of my really good friends, so the Zamponia name I brought up, they introduced me to one of their friends who was a freak. He was a nose tackle for West Virginia, and he wanted to get into CrossFit. And he was like, why don't you guys just start training together? And he kind of got me back into CrossFit. And I was like, well, why don't we both just try to do this together? And as you get a little older, maybe you try to make masters and I try to make a regional or something. And then like we kind of weren't getting that good, and I wanted to figure out like programming for CrossFit better, which kind of intrigued him. I was like, why don't we go to this gym? It seems legit. And like, I think we need to get around people and like just start CrossFitting again.
And that's like 2014, 15?
2015. Yeah, 2015.
And so then from 2015 on, like we can go through it, but like, I mean, since 2015, you've been coaching full time.
Yeah. So that's when I started coaching in an affiliate again. At that same time, I was like, what do I want to do? Do I want to get a master's degree or do I want to see what happens? So this is where I made some insane decisions where if I look back on it, maybe I would change all of those decisions, but I made them. I applied to a master's degree program at the University of Miami for strength and conditioning.
Okay.
And I had an in there because my cousin, the Zamponia name, was a kicker for Miami, and he just like stayed in connection with Miami forever. And he did like some CrossFit stuff and strength and conditioning there. So he kind of recommended me, and then I filled out all their application stuff and I got in. And at the same time, I was like, just in case, what if I want a business degree in case I ever want to run an affiliate or run a business on my own in the fitness space? And I was like, I need something different because literally all I know is how to teach someone how to do like fitness. I don't know how to run a business. I don't know how to do any of that at all. So at the same time, I applied to UF's online MBA, which required you to go there like for finals. And like, so like every semester you had to go there a certain amount of time, which was like a 4-hour drive from where I lived. I got into both, and I literally had no idea what to do.
If you would have gone to Miami, would you have been a Plan B Canes fan?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sweet. All right, we're good.
I probably would be working there right now.
Dude, Catholics.
I'd probably be at the unit. I'd probably be at UM, like still doing that.
Why? Well,
I think I would have
just would have got
fell
sucked
in
up
love with it. Yeah. Like being with, like being an assistant strength coach or.
It's such a grind.
And then at the same time that both of those things happened, my supervisor from FGCU sends me a text message, and he was like, hey, do you want to go to grad school? You can have a grad assistant position and we'll give you a free MBA.
Wow.
And he's like, but these are your work hours. And he showed me the hours, and I took all three options, and I made the craziest decision. I denied the Miami. I denied the free grad school.
Oh, I thought you went. Okay.
I denied the free grad school.
That was for exercise science, like at FGCU, or that would have been for
that was MBA? After. So I would have worked as a grad assistant for strength and conditioning to pay for my MBA.
MBA, okay.
And instead I chose the online MBA at UF because they were like top 5 in the nation, whatever, so that I could work full-time at North Naples CrossFit.
So you finished the MBA?
I finished the MBA, and I worked at North Naples CrossFit during the time, and I turned down the grad assistant in the Miami stuff.
Are you a Gators fan at all?
A little bit, yeah. I would put them as like my second team.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I know I'm really getting to the most important things. yeah. Canes fan.
But like
Canes
Matt,
fan.
So Matt and Dario, the guys who own North Naples CrossFit, they wrote my recommendations for the Miami program.
Why did you? Why? That begs the question. Why did you choose that?
That's the part I don't know. So I was just like, well, I kind of want to try as an athlete. I kind of want, like Matt had offered he wanted to coach a couple people to learn how to coach. Mm-hmm. And that happened kind of at the same time. He was like, hey, let me program for you. Like, quit trying to do it yourself. Like, let me learn how to coach.
And what year is this?
He did that with his sister. This was all like 2016. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work full-time at North Naples CrossFit. I'm going to get this MBA, and then I'm going to like either just give my life away to this affiliate, like to North Naples CrossFit, and try to like either be like a GM there or something, or like be their head coach, or open up like a satellite location of North Naples CrossFit somewhere, which was something like I had talked about with them a lot. I don't know. We had a bunch of different ideas all the time. And I was like, 24 at the time ish.
At that point, what were you more passionate about? Or did you not, or was it both? Or like, was it?
I think it was CrossFit. Cause when I went back to North Naples CrossFit, it like reinvigorated all that. Cause that community was just.
Even when you say CrossFit, is it like the coaching community classes and the community side of thing? Or is
all of it? My 9 a.m. moms who I still have a group text with. They're like my best friends.
That's cool.
Like when I go home for Christmas this year, I'll go get breakfast with them and their husbands and hang out.
But like, when did you, at what point, and again, we can go back again, but like at what point were you like, man, I really want to work with competitive athletes?
So that came
like
for CrossFit.
Yeah.
That actually came a lot later.
Okay.
So it was like affiliate and then like my own training. And it was about maybe a year and a half into my own training where I started like Matt and I just started talking about stuff because he got to coach Dallin. And then he also got to coach this girl. Lindsay Eater, maybe. I don't know. She almost made the games one year, like from regionals, but he was coaching her. And I was like, man, that is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's cool. And I was like, once I canceled regionals, like I was like, I'm never going to make the games. I knew that, like at where I was and how much I was working and stuff. And I was like, I also just don't think I'm good enough.
How was the NBA for you? Because I can't see you
it was fine.
Being excited about that. Getting through it.
Accounting sucked.
Yeah.
But there was parts I liked. I actually oddly liked economics classes. And in investments. It was a 2-year program. Okay. Yeah. And I actually like specialized in finance, but.
And when you get, so 2 years you're coaching at.
Yeah. So I finished the MBA. I went all in on North Naples CrossFit and was working there literally full time, like coaching as much as they wanted me to coach. Whatever, worked there for a while. And then at the same time there is when I started working for Brute.
Okay.
So then like I kind of like that's worked like under
18,
Matt.
19?
Yeah, more, okay. End of 18, early 19. Started doing that, had like a few athletes, worked with like Matt and Fowler a lot.
Yeah.
In that area.
Because Fowler owned it, right?
Okay. He ran like, basically like what you did. He ran like the individualized programming portion of it. They taught me everything I know. And then
that's like the old Trojan was like the emblem or the logo or whatever,
something like that. Yeah. Something like that with the headdress. Yeah.
And there are a lot of who are some of the other coaches?
And then Coach L was part of that group, and then there was another guy, Todd Wise. He owns his own thing now. I forgot what it's called. I still talk to him.
And where was the headquarters at?
I was in Utah, Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Utah. There was a bunch of people involved in it though.
How did Matt get hooked up?
Through Nick. So Nick Fowler was Matt's coach at one point when he was doing like programming.
Okay.
Yep. And then Matt like interned under Nick. Nick started that program. Matt was like kind of Nick's first coach under there.
Okay.
And then I was like under Matt. L was under Nick too. And then we all just started kind of working together. And then eventually like down the line, like Matt just started like expanding out. He bought another affiliate in Naples, was like working on that, working at North Naples and doing Brute. And then I went back to another affiliate in Naples and coached there kind of just like part-time on the side, and then started getting way more into individualized programming. Yeah. So then I was like basically like full-time with Brute and then just kind of coaching on the side is really what happened. Yeah. So I started coaching at another affiliate that one of my friends owned from like Life. His name's Alex Lefkakis. He owns like Real Fitness down in Naples, which is like where Telena, do you know who Telena Fortunato is?
Yes.
So that's where she trained out of.
Yeah. I think that's where Rich was there for a little bit. Klobler, I think.
Yeah. That's where I met him. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anyways, all the gyms in Naples like kind of know each other.
Yeah.
So I worked for him back for a little bit, basically until I moved here. So I worked at that affiliate until I moved here.
And so then the whole time, like any other, I know like right before you can save that, like right before you came here, did you have any, I guess, doubts or any other times that you were like, I want to do something else? Or the whole time you're like, I'm doing what I love and this is it?
Yeah, I did. Nobody actually knows this except for like my family.
The exclusive.
This is actually great. Podcast. Literally no one knows this except my family. Do you know what Arthrex is? Have you ever heard of Arthrex? They're like the #1 like orthopedic manufacturing.
No.
Okay, so Arthrex is like maybe the biggest company in Naples, and they do like orthopedic. I don't even know exactly what you would call it, like inventions type of thing. Like they invented some guy there invented like a surgery where you like you flip the head of the humerus, and it gives it like full range of motion if you need like a full shoulder replacement. So instead of doing a shoulder replacement, you just flip the humerus and it gives you like he invented that there. So some surgeon there. But anyways, that's like a massive company there, like #1 place to work. Probably one of the #1 places to work in the nation. They opened up like a big wellness center and facility, and they started hiring a ton. And I had a couple guys that I knew from church at the time that talked to me about it. And it's a place where like you basically can't really get into the interviews unless you have recommendations from other people who work there. And I actually interviewed there all the way till the last spot, and then was like with one other person. They gave the job to the other person.
Oh wow!
So I might have almost
huge
pivot. If I would have got that job, I would have went there because it was like full salary, maybe like 20 right before COVID.
But up to that point,
right
like
before COVID.
I mean, you were okay with like. Yeah, so I guess what
dude, I was wrestling though, like
I was gonna say
if I do this, CrossFit is done.
Yeah, right. Well,
and I was like, do I really want to be done with that?
Would you have taken the job, you think?
I think so, just because I was like,
Were you burned out or something? Or
no, it was finance,
Yeah. Okay.
financial decision. It would have
Yeah.
been a financial decision.
Meaning like this is what's going to set my family up for the future. Yeah. Got it.
Like, I mean, yeah, like,
Yeah.
dude, it was an insane amount of money.
Your setup. Yeah.
Like,
And
insane.
And so then that falls through, that doesn't happen. Were you discouraged? Like, okay, well, I guess this is it. Or you at the time you were like, this is.
There was so much crazy personal stuff going on in my life that time that I was just like 100% like, that is a providentially closed door.
Yeah.
No doubt. I wouldn't even, like, if they actually ended up calling me back later and they were like, hey, we're doing another hire for the same position. We need 2 of these people. And we came back to you. And I actually just told them, no, I didn't even go through with the process.
I want to push forward though. I want to come back to like your faith and like and when you got saved, but almost like just to finish the timeline.
Yeah, of the CrossFit side of things.
Yeah. So then.
Yeah, so I say no to that. That's right before COVID. Then COVID stuff happens. Tons of stuff happens. Anyways, like I switched coaching affiliates to Real Fitness at the time, and then, I hadn't really done much with Matt besides like remote programming or like coaching at comps for a while, and then he one day just kind of hit me up and he was like, hey, what do you think about moving these guys to Naples? Which was like at the time Dallin. I think he was coaching Dallin, James, Tudor, maybe Cole, Greasehaber at the time too, remotely, and Emma. I don't know if he was coaching Fee yet. Maybe Fee. Maybe he had just started with Fee actually. And he was like, I want to ask these guys if they want to move down here, but like, do you want to be a part of it type of thing? And I was like, that's my dream job. I was like, that's literally my dream job. So I was like, yeah.
And he was still in Naples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like coaching these people.
He was,
the kids
so he
remotely.
owned CrossFit, not North Naples CrossFit. He owned CrossFit Naples at that time. That was the second affiliate that he bought. So
that was like the start of the training camp.
Phil Toon. That's who I was missing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so he was like, you guys want to move here? And some of them said yes, some of them did not want to. And so we moved James, Dallin, and Phil were the first ones here in Emma.
That's 2021.
2021.
Like right after COVID.
Yeah, so we did like a little camp at Real Fitness. And another place like where we brought them down and like we did some stuff all together, and like even in the garage, like my friend's garage that I used to train with, like we did some stuff there.
What do you think clicked for Matt where he was like, hey, like I got to get these people down here?
So I think what happened is in 2019, I assisted him at the games coaching the teenagers for him at that year because he had 2 individuals. So he had, I forgot which individuals he had, but he had to focus on them. So I helped coach Dallin, James, and Tudor in the 2019 games, and they went 1st, 3rd, and 4th in the teenage division. And then the next year, all those dudes made a semifinal. Or was it a semifinal at that point? Yes, 21 was the first semi. They did do sanctionals, but they all got canceled for COVID. Then we made a semifinal, and they all went to those. And like James and Tudor were at West Coast Classic, and they got destroyed because it was their first one. They're like 17 out there, just like running around with their heads cut off. And then Dallin missed the games by a spot that year, and then had to go to the LCQ. So, which he was like a little more developed, I would say, in the teens. The other guys that came along fast, but they were like a year behind Dallin.
And this whole time, you like Matt's coaching these guys, like you're helping out, but you're still coaching a bunch of people remotely.
Yes,
through Brute.
Yes.
Like,
so I had like remote programming.
But how are you flying under the radar so much? You know what I mean? you know what I mean? Like legit, like nobody really knew who you were, right? But like,
or Matt.
Yeah,
a little bit more because he was like, coach at the games, but he was just like another coach at Brute. We were just sending it like in random.
For you, would you just say kind of like when it came to your individual athletes, like right place, right time? It's like you just didn't have anybody at the top, or? Yeah,
I think it was just like I had remote athletes. I had so I coached for a really long time. I had 2 females that were really good, both out of Canada. And I had a semifinal female the whole time through that I met randomly at North Naples CrossFit.
Yeah.
Nikki Matarazzo, she competed in semifinals for literally ever.
Just a great reminder that some of the best coaches are out there, and nobody.
Yeah, and I worked with her for like years. I still like if she wanted to start programming again tomorrow, I would do it for her. She might like make a splash in Masters at some point when she's ready. Like she's insanely fit. She was a pro soccer player, like freak.
So you're coaching with the like these.
She
guys?
was how I learned how to coach elite athletes, I would actually say. Like she came down to Naples a couple times and did like quarterfinals with us and made semis. Yeah, she was like the one person that I was like, well, I made her make it. And then I met another athlete out of Chattanooga who was a master's athlete, also very providentially. But I met her through her husband because her husband's brother-in-law or something worked for my friend who I did CrossFit with. He worked at like the Kia, and he came down to get a car once, and then we started talking, and then like he was like, oh, my wife does CrossFit. She's a freak, and she was a freak. And I worked with Hillary for a few years too. She podiumed at Wadapalooza in 2020, right before COVID as well.
We'll get to that. Kia, we'll get to the Kia dealership.
Yeah, we can get to that. But yeah, like so Hillary and Nikki were like two of my best athletes. And then I met two other athletes through Hillary and that team. So I coached them. They ended up doing a team. They ended up missing the games by a spot at the MAC the year Rich won it. Mm-hmm. They were at that semifinal.
Okay.
So them, I would say them plus Hillary, like she just missed the games like by a couple spots, like 2 years in a row in the 35-year-old division.
So these guys moved down.
But like those three people, I was like, I can coach elite athletes. Yeah. Like Hillary did it for me, Nikki did it for me, and then Joey and Becca, who they just stopped like doing stuff recently.
So the kids come down essentially, right? Like the teens. You guys start training in person, plus Phil, right? Like, and then that's like the start of the training camp, like in person training.
Yeah.
And then you do that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's really where I got into it. And then, so we did that for a full year. And then I helped Matt at the games, coach Dallin and Danielle at the time, because Danielle ended up joining the camp like right before the games at the end of the first year that we really did it. And so I helped Matt coach the two of them at the games. And then the year after that, like everybody made it. And that's when I met you. But
so then let's get into that point then. Like what went into you deciding to leave Brute? I mean, you're training how did you go from the training camp with Matt and Brute to training in somebody else's garage? Was somebody you from church or something like that with Nina and Jess?
So I was at Atlas Games 22. Yeah, I think so, with Nikki. I think she placed like maybe 13th there or so. She had a great weekend that weekend. But anyways, I was coaching her at Atlas Games. And at that same time, Matt had messaged me and he was like, hey, I have two athletes coming out of the teenage division that want to move to Naples and have a coach, and I'm full. But like they both have podiumed at the games and won the games. That was Nate Ackerman and Olivia Sulik. And he was like, do you want to do it? Like he was just like straight up. And I was like, sure. And he was like, okay, well, Olivia wants to get on a meeting tomorrow. And I was still in Canada. So I had my first meeting with her in like a grocery store in Canada, like over like a cell phone on like a FaceTime, with like her and her mom. And then she ended up just like, she was
I
like,
promise this is professional.
Yeah. She was like, I'm going to come down and like try a week out. And then if I like it, I'll move. So that we did that with her. I think she did that. Actually, that's a way longer story. I actually missed a huge point. Her original coach, I cannot remember his last name, but his first name is Nick, from Cincinnati, brought her down to Naples for like a week of training because he was like, hey, there's some things I can't help her figure out. And I think you two guys are like some of the best in the business. And I want to help her at the semifinals, see if she can make the games. That was the Syndicate Crown. I think she ended up missing it by like 2 or 3 spots. She had like one bad event, the Jackie event.
Yeah.
And it was after that semifinal when I went to Canada. So that was like COVID-ish year, 22 then, yeah. That's when James missed it by a point, same year. That she called after that semifinal and was like, hey, I want to try to join with you guys. So then she came down, and then shortly after that, Nate had just won the games. He missed semis that year. He didn't even qualify. So he was a year out of the teens, and his mom contacted us and was like, hey, I want to move down too. He came down and visited, got smashed by Dallin and James in every workout he did with them, and he was like, I got to come here. So then it was just me and the two of them. So it was just Sulik and Nate was like the only two I coached in person. Then I still had Nikki remotely, and then I helped Matt with all of his guys. So
yeah. So how do you
went from there?
So how do you get to what into the decision to separate?
So then we fast forward a little bit. Olivia Sulik decides to stop CrossFit, which then works in Jess Androsic, who basically got Sulik's spot. Because I was at a kind of a point where I was like, I don't really want more than one female and one male. Like, I don't think I can handle it and help Matt. And then just some like big life changes happen. I had an opportunity to own Brute with Matt. And I had to ask myself two really, 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 really hard questions. Do I want to be a business owner? And do I think I would hold Matt back in the way I would want to do it? Were like literally the two questions I was asking myself.
In what way? Like, can you give?
I just think like he is probably the most creative thinker I've ever met in my entire life. And I think I would have suppressed that just based on like how we would want the brand to look and what we would want that to represent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in terms of like programming and working together on a day-to-day, like, I mean, even when I see him at comps, it's like impossible for me not to like drift and hang out with him like the whole time. But
basically like just, you would, I mean, don't not put words in your mouth, but you guys just had different visions.
Yeah. And I had to like really think that through because I think I was trying to mold myself to his originally. And I was like, I can do this.
What was your vision? Like, what
I don't even know. That was the problem. Yeah. That was the problem is like, and that's when I got to like wait a second, I don't even want to be a business owner. What am I talking about? Like the last thing I want to do is have to manage people or do any, like, what am I talking about here? I'm a coach. I've always been a coach. I've never not been a coach.
Do you regret the MBA at all for that reason?
100%. Biggest waste of money of all time.
I love that. Yeah.
If I could.
Most people try to go back and go, no, because it taught me all this. And
no, if there's 100% one thing I would never do again was get an MBA. Neither. Okay. I would have just done
it.
Yeah,
you do what you're doing now. Yeah, but do you think you would have gotten a master's in exercise science if you could go back and still do what you're doing now?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe that. Yeah. But honestly, I don't even know. I think I would have. My whole life changed in 2019, really. Just like perspective wise.
Yeah. I still want to I'm holding that in my back pocket.
This is a 4-hour podcast.
I think we're doing okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. Guncler, you can keep us in check. But that's like one. I'm gonna ask some hard hitting questions. Yeah, it's one thing to be like, I got a different vision, and then it's another thing to go, but I'm gonna go off and do my own thing. So what went into that?
Yeah, so it really wasn't even that. I didn't really have a vision for my own thing.
Or I guess your own thing, yeah. But what made you officially like separate?
Yeah, so I actually ended up, I just talked to Matt and I told him like, hey, I don't want to buy, like I just don't want to be a business owner, and I was like, there's other like things where I want my life to go, and things that I feel like in terms of faith, like just don't want to put myself in. Dude was so.
And this is 20.
Man, he handled that conversation so well and was so kind.
And so what did you think you were going to do?
Yeah, that was 2022. So I actually, the next thing I did after having that conversation is I sat down with Nate and Jess, and I basically told them, I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to help like Matt finish the season with these guys. But like, I'm going to start separating now. If you guys want to stay with Brute, like I totally understand. If you want to stay with me, we're going to train out of this like little garage here. It's completely up to you guys what you want to do. Like if I was you, I'd like probably stay with Brute, I guess.
What was your plan to make money? Because you had remote clients through Brute. Like maybe you got to keep them or whatever. You don't have to go into that.
Matt was
2 years later. Like
I was still working at an affiliate at the time.
Okay, so you're still.
So I'm still coaching out.
You're like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
I was actually like, I'll just take on more hours at the affiliate and still do like remote programming. And like I said, like Matt was so awesome. Like I kept all my remote clients. I didn't have like a.
So you were still gonna be employed by Brute with
no, I had to do that on my own as well.
And you were going to be like, see,
I was just like getting clients off Instagram.
Okay, see, I was going to say though, the irony is like you're like, I don't want to be a business owner, but by going on your own, you're going to be a business owner.
Kind of, but it was like it was more just like, so this is where it was crazy. It's like, and at that point I had started like working with Nina a little bit too.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's an opportunity for you to actually work in person if you want to, because I just separated and I didn't have space for you before. So if you want it, you can try. And I was like, I'll give you guys like my best for 3 or 4 years, see if we can make it. And I was like, I basically had told them like, when you guys are done, I'm done.
And when
Like,
when did
I'm
you make
just-
that decision? Wait, pause. It just registered in my brain what you just said. When you guys are done, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I'm done coaching. What does that mean?
I was just going to be done with like competitive coaching CrossFit.
Right.
Like what I'm doing right now.
Would you
I
have
was-
gone to the affiliate? Because I think when I
I would have just worked at the affiliate and then
the Kia dealership.
and then went to
Yeah.
that. I was going to go get
Yeah.
a normal job.
Yeah.
I had convinced myself at that point that nothing was beneath me and like I could go be a line chef at McDonald's and provide for my family.
But you were always part time so that you could keep just doing affiliate coaching part time.
I would have just done affiliate coaching
yeah,
part time.
got it. Okay, because you're that passionate about it.
Mhm.
So what month was that then that you? It's a very specific question, but I'm trying to gauge like I guess not what month, but how close to the games that year in 2022?
It was February,
Okay, so it was like several months.
right
before
around
that.
right after the Open.
Yeah, and you told nobody except
Matt,
and because how did I find out?
I don't know.
Your friend, what was a friend? The
Freaking Olivia probably told one of my friends.
Yeah, yeah. So we got to tell that story now, right? Because it's February.
I literally told nobody.
Yeah, right. You're
Like
doing,
Olivia knew, Matt knew, and then I slowly had individual.
Have we told this story before?
I
don't think
slowly
so.
had individual conversations with each of the Brood athletes as well, because here's the thing is like, and they're still to this day, like those people were like my best friends at the time, all of them. And they still like, in some ways still are, like Matt, Danielle, Dallin, James, Emma, Fee, Phil.
Yeah.
Like I spent endless hours with those guys. And like we hung out outside of the gym like daily.
Yeah.
I was in James's wedding this last year.
Spring, summer, you're grinding in the garage, helping out, I guess, a little bit still because you still went to the games. With
Yeah,
them.
so I helped out like during
Yeah.
quarterfinals, and then a little bit like I'd pop in for semifinals training, and then at semifinals I had Nate, Jess, and Nina, and Matt had all his 5, and one of our other coaches, Daniel, at the time, he's from Switzerland. He came down and like helped Matt out, so he helped at semifinals there because I had all them. But like once I basically had told Matt like, hey, once my guys like their season is over, like whatever you need for the rest of the season, because we committed to these guys, like let's make it happen. So all those 5 guys made it. Like Fee made it, Danielle, like they all made it that year, which was super cool. So that whole summer I spent like at Brute helping Matt do it.
So tell the story of the games then. I guess that would be kind of like the official.
Yeah, so that I can tell. I'll tell it like this. So
you can tell, and then I'll tell how I heard about you.
I had talked to Olivia a little bit, and I was like, Olivia, I think this is like coming way shorter than we thought. Like, I think this journey is like over. Probably within the next like year or two. I was like, it might be the point where like I make all my money right now at the affiliate just so I can coach Jess, Nate, and Nina until they're like, I don't want to do CrossFit anymore.
I know you were prepared. You said nothing was beneath you at that point, but did that like really bum you out?
No.
No, you felt totally at peace with that.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you think that is?
Bro, like a month and a half of crying.
Really? Oh, so BS. You weren't
Well,
at peace with it.
a month and a half of crying till I made the decision with Brute. And then after I got through those conversations, I was like, this is the best decision for me in my walk with the Lord. And so if it gives me more of Christ, then it doesn't matter what I lose. And I had to get there for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
For a lot of internal reasons in my own character, and for a lot of reasons in terms of like reliance on who Christ actually is, not just some sort of thing I say. But yeah, I had to give up. He had to get me to a place where I had to give up the things or the thing, and also the relationships that I loved the most, because they were in an unhealthy place in my heart, even though they were good things.
As in like what? Like identity? It was like
like being a good CrossFit coach, and also like I mean, not that any of those relationships were bad or anything, just they were taking too much of a precedent, if that makes sense. And I think the tough part about really following the Lord, in my opinion, is I heard it described like this. You can have a lot of good things like this in your hand, or you can have a lot of good things like this in your hand. And if you have a lot of good things like this in your hand, the Lord will probably leave them there and allow you to steward them correctly. But if you have a lot of things like this in your hand, he'll probably tear your hand open and take them.
Yeah.
So that he can remind you that you need to have this hand because these things are fading and he is not. And so I needed to have my hand ripped open because I had all of those things clenched way too tightly in my grip. And I needed to get to a place where I didn't need them at all. It's to be satisfied in him. That's a big thing. So I didn't need any of those things to be satisfied in Christ, where I think there was a portion in my life where it's like, if some of those things got stripped away, would I still be satisfied in him? Or would I be like, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, I've been there. When like the thing I love the most, you lose it. And then you're like, but then, that's a perfect analogy.
Especially when it's a good thing, not a sinful thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole good things and ultimate things, which is almost at the root of most sin, right? Yeah. Okay, so well, that makes a lot more sense. So you go through that. It's like a period of mourning, like seriously, right? I
had some like serious conversations with elders at my church, mentors at my church, friends I trusted for wise counsel, sought them all out. Prayed 100 times if there was another way.
When I met you at the games, you almost seemed like checked out a little bit. Not like in your coaching. I meant more just like maybe checked out. Maybe I thought it was the last time I was ever going to coach. That's what games. It seemed that way.
I was like, this is the last.
You're like, I'm done. Not like I hate this. I'm done.
This is like what's the last year Michael Jordan won the
the last
NBA
dance.
Champion. Yeah, I was like, this is the last dance. Yeah, I was like,
That's what it felt like when I first met you. I was like, this guy's. I'm struggling to find the right word because I don't mean disengaged. Like you saw you in the warm up area. You're getting after it, right? Like there's never a dom in the warm up area, disengaged, right? But it was more just in your demeanor when I was talking to you about it, where you were just like, but you also was that piece where you're like, hey, what? It was almost like carefree.
Yeah,
that's probably the best way of saying it.
Stopped caring about CrossFit.
Carefree was like what it felt like. Tell that story of like how all that went down from your perspective.
Like when I met you.
Yeah.
So.
And then I can kind of share.
I remember sitting on the couch before the games. I don't know exactly when. I was probably watching an R.C. Sproul sermon, and then not paying attention for a second and like programming on the couch. The next video that popped on was like some Mayhem Road to the Games video, and Olivia was like walking around doing laundry or something, and she was like, man, wouldn't it just be sick if you just like could coach at Mayhem or something? And I literally looked at her. I was like, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. Like, that'll never happen. Like, nobody knows who I am. And plus, like, at this point, like,
Connor Custodian.
Like, let's do something. Like, I think it's time to do something else. And she was like, yeah, you're right. What am I talking about? Whatever. And I was like, but then in the back of my head, I was like, that'd be pretty sick. But obviously, I was literally like, nah. So then we're at the games. We're staying in an RV at the RV park. Me, a couple of Nate's buddies, Olivia, Nina, Jess, all in one RV. It's pretty fun. I coached a teenager that year at the games on my own. He got second. I guess I forgot to mention him. I coached him like all year. I still coach him now. Lincoln Lefevre. He's a freak. So that was cool. Like, that was a cool moment. We're like qualifying someone for the games and then also podiuming. And he was actually in first the whole weekend. I think he would have won, and I made a mistake on the 5K run because I didn't realize that it was short. Yeah. And I gave him the wrong pace, and he got like a middle of the pack in it, and it cost him first place. Okay. So that was on me. Otherwise, he should have won. And then, I was walking through the RV park, and you randomly just walked up to me, and you were like, can I ask you a question? I was like, who is this guy? I was actually just about to play a game of cornhole with Nate's friends. Yeah. It was like Daniel and Steven and Steven's little brother.
You're
and I was
by the
like,
Mayhem tent. So
I was waiting in line to play cornhole in the middle of some events. Just ridiculous. And I was like, where's this guy? Like, and then I was like, sure. And he goes, so rumor on the street is you left Brute. And I was like, literally in the back of my head, I was like, oh, no.
I don't know if it was the back of your head. You wore it on your face.
I was like, why? Yeah. I was like, why is this happening?
Yeah, you look. I was
like, this is the last thing I wanted. I don't want anybody to know about this. I'm just trying to slide out. Like
that was the immediate look you gave me. Was like,
yeah,
oh, no.
like goosebumps walk away from new girl.
Yeah.
And man, and then he was like, "Do you want a job at Mayhem?" And I was like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" I was like, "Can we revisit this like at another time? Like I gotta go warm some people up for an event in like 20 minutes. Like, are you crazy?"
I was like, we'll revisit it in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
'Cause I think we met that night.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like later on, just like talked and stuff. But yeah. So then that happened, and then next thing I know, I was flying up here for an interview.
It was like 2 weeks
a couple
later.
weeks later.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're
And
at
just
my
like
house.
the wildest like trickle down of events happened like during that time.
Yeah.
That I just like never, just a million things that I just never expected.
Selling the house or the apartment.
No, that
or,
didn't happen until we were
that
already
was
up
true.
here.
That was a few months in. Yeah.
But just like Emma seeking out coaching,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just like, didn't even know what to do with that. I almost said no to that
Yeah.
for a multitude of reasons. One of them was because like, I might be moving.
Yeah.
And like, she had no idea that any of this was happening. Again, the first person I talked to when I found out that this was what I was going to do was Matt.
Yeah.
First person I went to. I wanted nobody else to know except for him. And obviously I lived well.
Yeah.
And then after that, I asked him if it was okay if I told like each person that I was probably going to, leave and go work for Mayhem.
I gotta pause and tell just because how providential that story was, because I'll try to make it quick, but to back up, so Connor Custodio, one of our coaches, he knew Nina somehow. I don't know.
I think they did a comp together.
Okay.
But way before I knew.
But knowing
Nina.
Connor, who knows how? Like, he just makes connections everywhere he goes. So I remember Connor being like, hey, you should coach Nina, this girl Nina I met. And then I think Nina and I talked on DMs a little bit, but it was like, she was like, hey, I'm going to go work with this coach, like Dom. And then I told Connor, hey, she's working with some guy named Dom. Like, I never heard of you. I was like, don't know. Down in like Naples or whatever. And then Connor's like, I believe it was like from that context, and right away was like, yeah, you need to hire him at some point. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I remember I'm like, I don't even know. I was trying to find you on Instagram. I couldn't find you on Instagram. And I was like, dude, send me this guy's Instagram. He sends it over, and then you haven't posted in like 10 years. And I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about him. Then you just look like John the Baptist.
Yeah,
you know?
and then just like just stories,
Yeah.
no posts, just stories.
I don't even remember if I saw
scripture.
that. Yeah, I think I saw you getting saved, and I was like, that's cool. And then I saw you get saved, like you post about that, and then there was like crickets. And I was like, he's legit John the Baptist, man. He went dark, and he's out in the wilderness. And
John the Baptist.
And you're like, we're in the same, by the way, we're only a couple hours away from each other. And I thought in Florida, I'm like, I know the CrossFit, culture and environment in Florida. So how have I never heard of this guy? I knew about Matt Torres, I knew about Brute, but I had never heard of you. And Connor's like, immediately was like, you need to go talk to him. You need to go hire him. I'm like, well, he's with Brute, right? And he's like, no. Like he's already left. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, he's just already left. I got a friend or whatever.
Yeah, that was the friend from my church. And the only reason the kid at my church knew it is because I had such an emotional breakdown in one of my community groups that they all prayed over me, and then he must have mentioned it to Connor at some point. And this is
how Connor knows that.
You know what's crazy
kid
too is this
what's
kid's
random.
coming up to visit, and that's the kid I wanted to introduce to you to with doing the kids ministry stuff.
FCA. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wild
story.
Super wild. So by the way, I looked at your Instagram one time. And then I never thought about it again. Like, I didn't even cross my mind. I just wrote it off. I was like, I remember thinking John the Baptist, and then I moved on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then just like, never thought about it again. We're launching performance coaching after the games. I'm walking through the RV area, and I'm talking, one of my clients was there, and he's talking with me. And I see you out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, I think I just, quickly registered, like, that's that Dom guy. And then we just, nothing else comes in my head. We just keep walking. And I think it was like another 30 seconds go by. And all of a sudden I just stopped. And the PCA guy in me has a hard time with this, but I mean, definitely the Holy Spirit. It was like, I've never felt, it wasn't an audible voice, but it was just like my body stopped walking. And it was like, it was like an urge in my brain was like, go talk to him.
That is insane.
And like, I was like, I don't know. So I just was like, you know what? I paused with the guy and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to catch back up with you. I'd already actually left the exit.
Yeah, I actually kind of remember walking by you.
Okay, yeah. And then I like turned back around, walked up to you, and then that's when I was like, full send, like, hey, do you want to come work for Mayhem? I don't have the authority to offer you this job, but like, but we should have a conversation.
Yeah.
And then I could tell how worried you were when I mentioned like you had left Brute, because I thought it was like common knowledge.
No.
I'm like, oh, what's the big deal?
I was like, please don't tell him.
I was like, oh shoot, man. I'm like, you're like, how'd you find out? I was like, Connor's fault.
I was like, I literally did everything possible to make it.
Yeah. And then we met that night. And, one of the things that was really brought me a lot of peace is, I've talked about Madeline a lot on the podcast, my wife. And, if you remember, she was sitting there with us, like at the hotel for a little bit. And when we walked away, Madeline was like, no brainer. And it was like, I mean, right away I was like, okay, like we got to get this guy up here. What's crazy at the games, I got to add this one part, is Nomchev talked about it, Jake Nomchev and but his story being there, that games was crazy. Providence. Because Jake Nomchev goes to the games that year with no athletes there, no friends, no family, like drives from Birmingham, Alabama to Madison, Wisconsin, because he was praying one day and felt the Lord told him to go to the CrossFit Games. That's insane.
That's insane.
Yeah. And then sees Mike there. Like, and so because of that games, like you're up here, Jake's here, it's just wild. Yeah. So,
and like I said, I had kind of surrendered that, and I was like, well, when Nate, Jess, and Nina are done, like my friend had always told me like, hey, if you ever want to work at the dealership or something, like just let me know. And I was like, I'll just go do that. I'll make plenty of money. I'll be able to support my family, and I'll have nothing to worry about.
I will say too, it wasn't like a no brainer for you either, right? Like I don't think it was, because when we were talking, you weren't like, I'm all in. Yeah. There was some.
Yeah, I think it was just because like commitments I had made to those three, because I had literally sat them down and I was like, if you guys go with me, I'll ride with you till I die.
And that's what actually made me even more confident when you were like, hey, like it was like we were just chatting, right? And you couldn't even like, you probably went back to it like 5 times where you're like, I made a commitment to these guys, I got to stick to it. I made a commitment to these guys, I got to stick to it. I'm like, bro, just table. In my mind, I'm like, just table that. Let's talk about like, but you kept going back to it, and that's what made me go, okay, like he has integrity, you know, and I respect that.
Yeah,
so
I think just because like coaching for CrossFit is so much more for me than just like making the games or helping people win the games or podium at the games or whatever. And I had made like I make life commitments to the people that I help, especially in person.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm not going to do it unless it's also going to help their lives. Because that's what I told them.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go back on that, even if it costs me whatever.
So moving forward now, been here for a year and a half? Just about. Getting close.
Yeah, actually, it just hit a year in October. But
Okay. So a little over.
But I had started like working remotely a little bit.
Right.
Like, a little bit before that.
So.
Maybe like September.
Yeah. So current role, obviously come here. You're just kind of coaching your people on the side, and then it became quickly, well, we already knew this, like we need somebody on site.
Yeah.
Right. And
I think I just naturally like started helping people in here too. That
it was like, inevitable.
I can't help myself.
Inevitable. And so now you are on site head coach. Describe like what a day looks like for you right now.
Wake up, go to the gym, session 1. After session 1, little break in between, normal session 2. Usually like I do remote work like in between a little bit, or like just have lunch and hang out, like clear my mind, and then do a lot of like remote programming and stuff like after the day ends at like 4:35. But it's kind of like, it's not really 2 jobs. It's kind of like what I was doing in Naples actually. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's like I do remote coaching for a certain amount of athletes, and I have some people in person that are really trying to like dedicate their lives to try to like be an elite CrossFitter, not even necessarily just make the games, but just like make a profession out of CrossFit and have a couple years where they can like really put their lives into it, a few years, put their lives into it and gain hopefully more than just becoming a good CrossFitter. But I think it just naturally grew out of that because that's what I had already been doing for 2 years. Yeah. So when I moved here, I just kept doing the same thing, whether I was getting paid for it or not, because kind of technically down in Naples, I was not getting paid for it anyways, because Matt and I were just doing it together. Like we just went in on it. Honestly, Matt was probably losing money for a long time, just pouring into these guys. And so I was just like, well, this is what I do. So I'm just going to do it. And then like it grew into something more than that. And obviously like the community here is awesome, and they see whatever opportunity you guys see as a value for the athletes to better their lives, not just to become better CrossFitters. Basically Mayhem pours into. So
what's your like vision or dream or whatever you want to call it for like for Mayhem and Mayhem athlete and the competitive side of things? Like,
yeah, I think no matter what, it's just like, can we become a place where people know, like even if whether they move here or whether they do remote programming, that they're going to get a coach invested in their lives. And that when they come here, they're not just going to be, whether they're here or doing remote coaching, like they're not just going to get coached on like fixing their snatch or getting like improving their nutrition or making their CrossFit goals. Like they should hopefully walk away whenever they're done with whatever portion of competing they're doing, that they're like, I'm a completely different person in the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that's what Cookeville /Mayhem athlete /Mayhem performance coaching is, just in different arenas.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
For sure.
It's like athletes that come here in person are getting the same attention and care, I really think, as athletes that are getting remote coaching. It's just in a different fashion. Mm-hmm. And that's what intrigued me about Mayhem, is like, there's a platform here, and a very open platform. Like, where can you work where you can basically just like preach the gospel freely? I don't know if it exists. And I get to do that on top of like coach CrossFit to the best of my ability on a daily basis. Like, I hope every person that I get to work with, especially in the in-person people, like when they leave Cookeville, whatever time I got to work with them, like at some point they're like, man, those 2 years were crucial to my life and whatever I do.
Yeah.
Like, I hope we can like help build and discipline people on that. And then I think long-term have other coaches learn to do what you're doing, what I'm doing, and they take our place.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're already doing that.
Yeah.
So, and leaving that impact.
Yeah. Like a small little legacy, like,
for sure.
I don't think we even need necessarily like the CrossFit Games in order to even do that. We need competitions.
Yeah.
We need a competitive season. We need competitions paying athletes to make a career out of it, like any sport.
Yeah.
But it's like people, I think that specifically for the on-site, if I'm talking about that, people want to come here because they're seeking more than just making the games. I think that's the original appeal. And then they get here and there's something more for me here than just becoming an incredible games athlete or a credible semifinals athlete.
I mean, I don't know maybe I'm just, because I think a lot of that even remote too.
Yeah. 100%.
I hope it is.
No, 100%.
Yeah. I hope people are coming to us for the same reason.
I would definitely say, like, I mean, just from thinking about it, like in the years I've done remote coaching, this is the longest I've ever like retained clients, but I think it's because a lot of them are like slowly becoming like friends. So like when I meet with them on calls or something, like I don't just talk to them about CrossFit. I'm like, how was work today? Like, what's your life like? Like, what's going on? Which is cool. But like, it's cool to do that remotely.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, contextually, it's like normal to lose client. We do fitness coaching. Yeah. So people come and go all the time. And shoot, when somebody has a major life change or their budget gets tight, what's the first thing that they cut? Their fitness, right? Understandably. I don't know if you've lost a client in like a few months.
It's been a while.
Yeah. It's been a long time. Yeah. And most of our coaches don't. Like we have, I did some like performance reviews with some of our coaches earlier. We're just meetings like every quarter, just what are we doing too, right? And I was telling them, like, one of the things I'm most excited about and happy about is our churn percentage. It's the lowest I've ever seen for like a brick and mortar gym, online coaching. I've never seen anything like it. And I'm like, that's just the coaches we have and the relationships that I think are being built. Matt Connolly always said, like, clients come for results, but they stay for relationship.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think we're already doing what you hope, building that legacy and so.
Sure, I think it's just like growing it at this point. Like all the things are in place. It's just now like making it a long-term
for sure
thing, which is cool.
Well, we never really circled back to your faith story, but I think we might have to do that another time. Yeah.
Well,
jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we just highlight, for me, this stands out so much to me. And I'd love to highlight it because you talk about that time where you were like this with your hand closed with God, and he started asking for it from you, and you wrestled with him for 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks.
Probably longer, but yeah, that's like when I was feeling it.
But you didn't really describe it clearly. You reached a point though where you opened up your hand?
Yeah. I don't know if I opened it.
I
think it got pried open.
Yeah, wrenched open. Yeah,
ripped open.
Ripped open.
But then you were obedient.
Yes.
And you went to Matt and you followed through with what you believed he was asking you to do.
100%. And I think one of my friends always says this to me, like, to try to encourage me. And every time I see him in Naples, he's actually the guy who preached me the gospel and I guess in a sense converted me. I mean, God converted me, but he used him. And he always says, like, to me, he's always like, the thing that I love the most about your walk is you're always just obedient to the next smallest thing. And it's the accumulation of a bunch of small obediences that always lead to something that you don't really understand or can think about. And I don't think there's also a collection of not small, but a collection of little backslidings and little sins and that mount up to convictions that also change my character, that also lead to obedience. So it's like, there's moments where, yes, I've been obedient, but there's moments where I've also been disobedient that over the course of God's kind divine discipline in my life actually pushed me to obedience, if that makes sense. And a loving father disciplines his child. So I think just recognizing it in that point and allowing him to even use circumstantial things to develop my character and to trust that the most important purpose of my life is to be conformed into the image of Jesus Christ. And if that's God's goal for my life, then it also needs to be my goal for my life. And it doesn't matter what that takes or what it costs. So, like, I think in order for me to ever even have a job like this, I needed to be able to let go of that so that if God ever decides, like, to pry Mayhem out of my hand, he doesn't have to pry it. I can just be like, okay, sounds good.
Right? He gives and he takes away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But would you say that he's replaced what you gave up, what you laid at his feet? Now where you're at, has he, like, is it more?
Yeah. You know, my stepsister said something to me interesting when I got this job, and she was like, hey, remember all those years before you were even a believer and all you ever talked about was, like, how badly you wanted to go to the games or, like, how cool it would be to be, like, at Mayhem, like, doing what all those guys do? And I was like, yeah. She was like, isn't this way better? And I was like, you know what? If it would have went my way, it probably would have sucked.
Yeah.
Like, this is way better. And it is actually even the thing that, like, I kind of asked for, but not the way I wanted it to go. Like, I think I wanted it to be as, like, an athlete or, like, just living the life or whatever I want. Who knows what I wanted. I was such an idiot from, like, 16 to 25 is, like, gosh, freaking the prodigal son times 12.
Yeah, I had in college a similar experience with relationship with Madeline, and I felt like it was like I was holding on real tight, and then we broke up, and it wasn't just like a traditional breakup. It was like a breakup, and that was my time where I felt like I had to pull out. And I one of the professors in my class, Dr. Curtin Johnson, like, I remember he came up to me after class. I didn't know him that well, and he's like, there's something wrong with you. I'm like, I'm good. No, I'm straight. Like, I'm good. And I'm trying to be like a tough, college football jock. And he's like, no, we should go get coffee. I was like, okay. And so we got coffee, and he got it out of me. And, then you're just like sobbing, over coffee. I'm like, yeah, I'm messed up, man. And, but anyway, he was like, man, I'm a firm believer that, like, obviously God uses pain and suffering. And it was kind of that same analogy. Like, he gives and he takes away, and he'll take things away that we love the most because they're replacing him.
Yeah. He's done that over the course of my short, I guess, 6 years now.
Here's what he said to me that was, like, jarring, that actually made me finally, like, open the hand up and go, okay, Lord, like, I'm listening. He was like, I'm a believer that God does that, and he does it all the time, providentially in people's lives. He goes, but I think, two things can happen. One, you listen, you let go, and you go, okay, I'm here. Or two, you don't listen. And then he was like, now when you don't listen, so that was when he said two things could happen when you don't listen. He goes, one, you have to ask yourself then, if you don't listen now, what's it going to take next time? Right? He's like, I'll let your imagination run with that.
That sounds like First and Second Kings.
He goes, or number two, what I think you should be even more afraid of is what if he doesn't try again? And when he said that to me, that just like, I actually like, I think it was the next day I fasted for the first time. And I was like in the prayer chapel, like, I'm listening, like, please, I love my mom, or like, I want to play football, or you're just thinking about all these things, like, but that shook me. And so, that made me think of that grasped hand. And maybe people who are listening to this now, it's like C.S. Lewis said, God speaks to our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It's his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. It's like, we start preaching now. It's like, who out there is going through something right now where it's God trying to go, like, it's time to listen, and you're holding on to something.
There's so many moments since I've been a believer that happened like that. I mean, even my own conversion. I guess we'll do it. Do we have like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right.
Send it.
So in like very end of 2018, I'm still training. 2018 in the Open was the closest I ever made it to regionals. I think I maybe was like 20 spots out that year. And then there was no more regionals after that. Like highlight of my CrossFit career is like I beat Brent Fikowski in the first Open workout of 2018.
Let's go.
That's about it.
What was the workout?
It's like the row, total bar, dumbbell, hang dumbbell. And the only reason I know it was him is because I remember Matt coming in the next day. He was like, dude, look at these people that you beat. I was like, how is that even possible? I was like, I think we just got lucky or something. Like, did we submit the score wrong?
No handstand push-ups.
Did we? Did we submit the score wrong? So end of that year, I don't know. I'm just thinking about a lot in my life. And like, I've been dating Olivia at that point for 4 years. Like, I don't know. There was just so many things, and all I'm doing is like training. Like, I'm working still at the affiliate and stuff, but I was training so much and by myself. And there was like nobody really to train with that was pursuing CrossFit at all in that area at that point. So I was just always kind of really doing it on my own. And I had one day in the gym where I was like, I kind of wish I was just sitting with my grandparents right now. And I was like doing split squats, all those freaking split squats that'll just completely change your life. Like, just do a hard set of split squats, and you'll reconsider everything. But I also was just like sitting there, and I was like, I have a written testimony of this, but basically the question that like started coming in my head is, what have I done with my whole life? Like, how many things have I just squandered? Like, how many times have I like lied to the people that I love just to do something like stupid or that like is pleasing to me? And then I started thinking about like, who am I actually impacting? Like sitting in a gym 8 hours a day by myself. And then like I did like the weirdest thing, which I really didn't listen to Christian music at all, but my younger stepsister was already a believer, and she tried to give me like all these like Christian CDs once, and I just threw them in the back of my Camry. And then like I kind of one day I like put a couple of them in and listened, and then that's like I kind of liked them. So anyways, I put a little playlist on my Spotify and like put it on the thing, and I like started playing actually like a Need to Breathe song, even though I'd never really listened to them. And something in one of the songs just started like making me weep. And it was like in that moment in the garage where I like literally just started like confessing my sins like by myself in a garage out loud. And then like I remember finishing that, and I was like, I think I've legitimately lost my mind. Like I think I'm crazy. And I actually like got in my car and I just drove around Naples for like an hour and a half. And then I went back home because Olivia and I had just moved in together in November. Also, mistake, would change that route. But anyways, and I didn't tell her for like 2 months because I had no idea what happened. And I like, what's crazy is like a couple times my grandfather my whole life, I grew up Catholic with him, but he would always ask me to go to church with him, and I'd be like, no. And he had like this picture of Jesus, like this like little picture of like Christ's face, some rendition of Christ's face, like over where he used to sit at the dinner table. And like when I lived with him for like years, every day when I would walk out the door, he would like point up at the picture and be like, he's waiting for you. And I'd be like, you're so dumb. That guy didn't even exist in my head. But he would say that every day I'd walk out the door, literally every day. But anyways, Olivia and I are living together at the time. I go home, I don't tell her. One of Matt's best friends from high school, this guy named Jarrell, he randomly comes down to Naples. He's living in Tampa at the time. Or no, he was living with Matt at the time, and then he was looking for like he needed to move out of Matt's house because Matt was getting a new place and moving out on his own, basically. So him and I started talking about like, hey, we need a roommate. Like that would be great. Like Olivia and I need a roommate or something. And he decides randomly at a North Naples CrossFit Christmas party to be like, hey, I don't know why, but my church is starting a men's like Bible study and like men's group every Thursdays at 6 a.m. And I just feel like you should come. And no one had ever asked me. I've never done anything like that in my entire life. I don't even own a Bible. No one's ever asked me to do anything like that ever. And literally at the Christmas party, I looked at him and I was like, that's exactly what I need. And I was like, I'm going to go. And he's like, are you kidding? And I was like, nah. And he was like, whoa, he was like, I feel like I've been wanting to have this conversation for a while, but I didn't really know how to do it. So long story short, that guy ends up moving in with me. He buys me my first Bible. He takes me to that men's group. I think I truly kind of got converted in that men's group. I had that like kind of little supernatural interaction in the gym. But it was really like, I remember sitting in that men's group like the second week, and I was like, what do these guys have that I don't? Like, these dudes are clean. But they're not. Like, their story, one of the dudes who like really mentored me a lot is previous alcoholic and runs the recovery program at my old church from Naples now. But I was like, man, they're so, like, it's so pure. And there was stuff going on in the background of my life that nobody knew about. And in my heart and in my head that nobody knew about. That's so gross and so evil and so prideful. And I was like, not only do these guys openly talk about some of that stuff, but be like, they know they're good. And I think at that point, like I had come to an acceptance. I would have considered myself like agnostic with like a little Catholic flair. That's probably what I would call it. At one point I was completely atheist in my life, which we do not have time to go over, but at that point, I had convinced myself to be an agnostic with a little flair of Catholicism and a potential chance that Jesus was a real person.
Can we add that as like an official denomination at some point?
Yeah. Nobody go down that road. Yeah. It's a bad dead end. So anyways, I go there. They're leading me through like these studies, and I'm just like really lost for a lot of it, but just like coming back to, it's always coming back to Christ. And then my friend buys me the Bible, and COVID happens, and I literally have nothing to do, and I somehow read the whole Bible during like a month and a half off from work pretty much. I read the whole New Testament probably in like maybe a 2-month period, and then the whole Bible probably in about a 5-month period. And I like had some guys from the men's group mentor me through it, baptize me, so on and so forth. But anyways, so that's how it really happened through this guy named Jarrell, who is Matt Torres' best friend, who we randomly became friends through him, through CrossFit. Next thing I know, I'm getting baptized. It gets crazier. On the day that I get baptized, my grandfather goes down while he's in church and gets rushed to the emergency room, and we get told that he has 24 hours to live on the same day that I got baptized. And to be honest, I did not invite him to my baptism because I was scared that he would be upset that I was getting baptized outside the Catholic Church. And I wish I wasn't, because I ended up getting to have, he did last longer than 24 hours, but I ended up getting to have the conversation with him about what had happened and read him my testimony. And he literally looked me in the face and he said, all I ever wanted for your entire life was for you to know Christ. And that was it. That was how it ended. We didn't talk about Catholicism. We didn't talk about anything else. And then the next thing he told me before he passed was like push that to your uncles. So I've always been way too hard on my family for the last 5 years on them needing to read the Bible, which my mom just read the Bible for the first time this year, which was really cool. We kind of did the same reading plan together. But yeah, that was just crazy. And he ended up dying. He died and came back to life like 3 times in the course of intubation. It was a wild 4 months. So that's really when I stopped like CrossFit as even like fitness in general. I just spent so much time with him in the hospital, and he was such a core part of my family. And just like really trying to help care for my grandmother during that time. They had been married for 60 plus years. And they raised me. Like they're my second parents. I mean, my mom did an incredible job, but
look how he did it for you, right? Just pointing at that picture.
Unbelievable. And then a year later, my grandmother dies. She has an aortic aneurysm on a random day when we weren't expecting. And she was like, I mean, she wasn't healthy. She had rheumatoid arthritis and stuff, but she had no heart issues. But she dies from an aortic aneurysm unexpectedly. The coolest thing God did during that time was 3 things. He kept me strapped with my Bible so I could just preach to my uncles and my family all the time when they thought they were losing the most important person in their life who held my family together. He opened up the doors with the kids from Brute and the stuff with Matt, like during that time to like sustain something there. And I think the growth that I got from losing my grandparents, because that was a big thing to let go of for my family as a whole, and to kind of be the only one who had a grasp of the gospel in that moment, to be like, guys, this is what we have to put our hope in. Like, we got nothing else at this point, was crucial. And then one of the coolest things the Lord gifted me during that time was I got to give almost like a mini sermon, but really it was kind of like a eulogy at the wake for both my grandfather and my grandmother. And that was just an incredible opportunity. When I tell you there was like 300 plus people at my grandfather's funeral, it's like probably more than that. Wow. So just like opportunities to share the gospel there and just build, just like strengthen my faith through those. And then after that, like it was even in the midst of those things, like Olivia and I get married, we completely transformed my life. Like before we got married, we committed to like purity because we had fallen in that, like prior to me being a Christian and me leading her in horrible ways. And she also gets baptized and like comes to the faith, even though she grew up like in Awanas and stuff as a kid, fell way far away from it doing softball. Wow. Yeah. So like when she got really into softball, she fell out of the church and really didn't follow Christ at all. And we both kind of came to faith around the same time, like, and really gave our, like, she really recommitted and I was completely converted. And we grow in that, and then all the other CrossFit stuff happens, and then I have to give up the Brute thing, right? So that was just like another one down the road. And that was like all within a 3-year time period. So it was like grandpa, grandma, Brute, and here we are. Quick, short.
One word to summarize it all.
Yeah, I would use, maybe not one word, but I remember during the course of that period, I read a little book.
I've got one.
And I think it's the beginning of like Calvin's Institutes, which I didn't know at the time, but I think it's called like a little Christian book on suffering or something. I'm messing up the title. Anyways, I remember there being a small little chapter in there, and it was like, in suffering is where the Christian experiences his greatest blessing. And because of that is because it's the one thing that unifies us to Christ the most. So if there's one way that we can really come to know our Savior, it's like in our moments of suffering, like whether from persecution or from like a trial or whatever. And like, as I read the scripture, but I remember that always sticking with me as I was like, especially when my grandfather was sick, was like, if I can come to know Christ more through this, I do not want to waste it. And so every time I come to a moment like that now, even if it's hard, or like when stepping away from Brute felt like that felt like one of the hardest things I've literally ever done, which sounds kind of silly, but like people have done way harder things, but that was very hard for me. And in that moment I was like, if this makes me look more like Christ, walk closer to Christ, and know more of my Savior just in unity and communion, then it is worth it, no matter what it costs. And at that point, like, I mean, it's like kind of a cliche life verse, but Bailey made me this bracelet because I wanted my life verse. But Mark 8:34-36, which is like, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? And then like the beginning of that is, calling the crowd to him. Jesus said to his disciples, pick up your cross, right, and follow me, for my sake in the Gospels. So yeah, I just kind of adopted that. I keep that on the background of my phone so I can read it every day. Calling the crowd to him with his disciples, he said, to them, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul?
Enough said. Providence was the word.
Providence. I just finished reading that book.
Yeah, that's good.
We should close it there.
You just tied the bow tie on it. Yeah, that's it. Until next time.
Mark 8:34-36. Mayhem Performance Podcast, episode number 10. Complete. Till the second coming. No.
Yeah.